Grief is so personal, and it shows up differently for everyone. There is no right way to go through it, and honestly, it can feel really lonely at times. In this podcast, we just share our own experiences from our point of view. What helped us, what didn't, and what we have learned along the way. We're not saying we have the answers, far from it. But if our conversations can offer a little comfort, connection, or even just a reminder that you're not alone, then we are really grateful for that.
I have to say the first couple of episodes probably sounds a bit heavy and sad because everything we talked about so far really is, and it's part of the topic. But sharing these experiences is kind of crucial in that matter. But we really hope our listeners don't think that we're too downhearted. The topic itself is heavy, but our goal is to share hope and joy for life as well.
So today we're going to talk about something that can be really tricky. How people talk to you when you're grieving, or more often, how they don't.
What do you actually say to someone who's grieving? Is there a right or wrong way to do it? I think this one can be so helpful. I know that for me at least, I would love to talk about this because I need to learn. I remember this being so hard.
So, from my experience, there are definitely some pitfalls to avoid. For me, at least, that was the case. But it's hard for people around, as you say. I probably said so many wrong things myself over the years.
I think we all have, but maybe you can give us some examples or situations you have experienced regarding communication. I mean, things people say.
First of all, I Googled this just for fun, and here's what she said. Yes, I call her she. So, what to say to someone in grief? And Google said this: I'm so sorry. I don't have the right words now, but I'm here. I'm thinking of you. If you want to talk to me, I'm here. Would it help if I just sat with you for a bit? I miss them too. You don't have to be strong for me, just be you. And the last one, there is no right way to grieve. Whatever you feel is okay. And I think for me, this last one is a strong one, because I needed to hear this.
Yeah. And I Googled what not to say. And here's what it said.
Okay.
For me, it's an it. Okay, so avoid saying, everything happens for a reason, because it might feel comforting to say, but it can come off as dismissive. They're in a better place. That may be true in your beliefs, but grief often needs space before comfort. At least they're not suffering anymore. The at least phrase tends to minimize pain, even if well-meaning. You're so strong, I couldn't do what you're doing. Most grieving people don't feel strong, they're surviving. Time heals all wounds. Time helps, but grief doesn't follow a schedule. Okay. So that's what it said. So after reading that, what comes to mind? Can you relate to any of this?
Indeed, I can, for sure.
Can you give us some examples?
Well, let me start with this, because there is this word we say in Norway after someone loses someone, and I absolutely hate that word. It actually sounds so much better in English, I think. It's my deepest condolences. In Norway, we say kondolerer, and I think that sounds so harsh. I don't know. I just don't like the way it sounds. Also because congratulation is gratulerer, and then my condolences is kondolerer. It sounds almost the same, but so opposite. It just feels wrong, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I just think it sounds cold and weird, but it's kind of the thing people say. So, anyways, that's the first thing that comes to mind.
I can totally see that, yeah. Kondolerer does have that sort of formal, almost stiff ring to it. Like it doesn't really carry any warmth. And yeah, sounding like gratulerer doesn't really help either. Well, the opposite. I
Yeah.
never thought about that actually, and I think people just don't always know what to say. So maybe that's why they go for the standard phrases, the polite thing to say. Honestly, I think what matters most is how it's said, like the tone, the eye contact, the feeling behind the words. But maybe sometimes a simple I'm sorry with a genuine presence can mean so much more.
Yeah, that would be so much better. And as you say, be genuine. And also, as Google said, when people say, you are so strong and brave, I would never have managed, blah, blah, blah. That also is, at least for me, something I actually can get really frustrated over because I'm not braver than anyone else. I had no freaking choice. Because I carry it well doesn't mean it's not heavy. And this is a quote I read, by the way.
What that the quote is, because I carry it well doesn't mean it's not heavy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Me and my quotes.
I like it.
And and I know this is meant well, but the truth is I didn't, and I don't feel very brave. I just had to deal with my loss and now my trauma. So that's it.
Yeah. I actually thought about that a lot too. Like when people say you're so strong, I get that it comes from a good place, but it can also feel a bit off, right? As if being strong means you weren't falling apart inside or like you had some kind of superpower. But the truth is, I saw you during that time and you were doing what you had to do. And that's not a choice, it's survival. And honestly, sometimes I think those comments make it harder to just be human in the middle of something really hard, like you're expected to live up to that image of strength when all you might need is someone to just sit with you in your pain without labeling it or fixing it.
Yeah, right. I didn't choose to be strong. I just kept going because I had to. But again, I get that it's coming from a good place, and I probably could say the same to someone before I knew what it felt like, because it kind of sounds like a compliment.
Yeah, it's an important takeaway for sure. But do you have any specific stories, like moments where something someone said just felt off? Or maybe where the conversation didn't land right? Anything that stuck with you?
I have quite a few. Let me think. I remember this one time so clearly. I had pushed myself to go for a walk in the forest, just trying to breathe some, and honestly, I didn't want to see anyone. That forest felt like my safe place where I could be alone with my thoughts and my dog, of course.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know it, on that exact day, I ran into a couple I know pretty well, and I could tell it right away. They didn't want to see me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get that feeling, and I remember you telling me this.
It was all over their faces. Awkward body language, no eye contact at first. But now that we'd seen each other, they had to say something. I was standing there, no makeup, pale as a sheet, underweight in my sweats, just trying to hold myself together. And the guy goes, "Oh, are you out for a walk in the forest?" And I'm like, "Yep." And then they just started rambling about how beautiful the forest was this time of year. And I agreed, of course, but they just kept repeating it. It was the most bizarre small talk, the forest, this and that. And not one word about what happened. Nah, no, how are you doing? No, we've been thinking about you. Not even a simple condolerer. It was like nothing had happened, just a normal day. And there I was kind of manning up for my response, what to say, how to react, how to hold back the tears. At that time, I was still so hurt, and those interactions really stuck with me. It affected me so much more than I expected, kind of.
Yeah, I can totally see how that would feel awful. Just ignoring it like that. Wow. But maybe they just didn't know what to say, so they went for the safest, most meaningless small talk. Honestly, so hard though. People are so weird sometimes. Or scared, maybe.
Yeah, and I do understand that it's hard for people to know what to say. Grief makes people uncomfortable and they don't want to say the wrong things. I get it. I remember thinking the same before. But at the same time, acknowledging the person in front of you is so important. It doesn't have to be anything big or complicated. Just a simple, I've been thinking about you, or even a nod that shows you've seen them, that you recognize what they're going through. That little bit of acknowledgement can actually make all the difference.
In that situation, though, would it have been better just to say hi and walk a different way, you think?
Considering the conversation, maybe. I don't really know. Who knows? Maybe I would have thought that would have been strange too.
Yeah, I get it. But talking like you're avoiding the matter that you just lost your husband is kind of strange. But again, like you said, it was obvious that they didn't know what to do or say. Maybe just a little acknowledgement would be more than enough.
Mm.
But what about times when people actually did or do ask how you're doing? Have you had moments where someone asked and it felt helpful, or did that sometimes feel hard too?
I think most people met me with kindness and love, and I truly felt held by those around me. But naturally, the awkward moments stick with you too. It can be a real challenge for people to ask someone in grief how they're doing, because if you ask, you also have to be ready for the answer. And let's be honest, not everyone is. So
Right.
I do remember this one time at the grocery store. This sweet girl at the checkout looked at me and nicely asked how I was doing. She said she was so sorry to hear about my husband, and you could tell she truly meant it. And that day, well, I answered honestly. I told her I felt worse than I ever had in my life, a living nightmare, and I didn't sugarcoat it. I just let it all out. And honestly, that wasn't my best day to be out in public, I guess. I should have just stayed home or driven 30 minutes to a store where no one knew me, like I used to in the beginning, just to avoid those interactions.
Yeah.
But anyway, poor woman, she froze. She clearly had no idea what to say next. And I felt so bad after, like I dragged her into something too heavy. But also, what else could I do? This was my truth in that moment.
I can totally picture that full scene in front of me.
Yeah.
Maybe she expected you to say something like, I'm managing, or thank you for asking, I'm taking it day by day. But,
Mm.
even if she froze, I think it was so nice of her to ask, show that she cared.
Yeah, for sure. She was so genuine and sweet. But as you say, most people expect you to answer in a more positive way, maybe. Something easy to nod along to before moving on. But when you hit them with the raw truth, it suddenly becomes very uncomfortable, and I get it. That's why I totally understand why some people avoid asking altogether. It can be awkward, and they're afraid of making things worse. So sometimes I just say, oh, I'm okay, or fine, thank you, just to avoid that awkwardness or the situations.
I guess that's part of why grief can feel so isolating. If people don't acknowledge it, it hurts. But if they do and they're not prepared for the real answer, It can feel just as weird.
In my opinion, there is no perfect way to do it, but I'd still rather have someone ask and stumble through it than pretend nothing happened, I think.
I agree with that. Ignoring it is so wrong in so many ways. It's not about having the perfect thing to say, just about showing that you care.
People overthink it maybe because really it's the small, honest things that make a difference. So I think another important thing is that if you do ask someone how they're doing, you have to be prepared to actually hear their answer.
That's a good point. It's not just about asking, it's about listening too.
Right. Sometimes the answer might be uncomfortable, it might be too emotional or even completely devastating and hard to relate to also. And that's okay. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to have the perfect response. Just being there, just listening can mean so much more than trying to fill the silence with words.
It's interesting how we always want to fix things. Maybe because sitting with pain feels so hard. I don't know.
I actually read that this fix it reflex is deeply human. We are wired to reduce discomfort, both our own and others. So maybe that explains it.
You know, when we talk about this, I find it so fascinating how different people are in general when it comes to communication. Some people are just so hard to talk to. It's like they're more focused on what they're going to say next than actually listening to what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, the classic waiting to talk instead of actually listening. They are waiting to talk with their mouth full of words. I know them.
Yeah. Or the ones who somehow manage to hijack every conversation. You know, the type where you answer their question and then boom, suddenly it's all about them. Or even worse, the ones who interrupt constantly as if whatever they have to say is so much more important.
Yeah, that's so disturbing. I mean, you'll barely get a sentence out before they jump in with, oh, that reminds me of this thing that happened to me, and off they go.
Like, why even ask me a question if you don't actually care about the answer?
And then you have the ones who always talk over you, no matter what. It's like a, I don't know, battle for airtime or something.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating is that they don't even seem to notice. Meanwhile, I'm just sitting there thinking, wow, am I even in this conversation?
It's wild how different we are. Some people are genuinely thoughtful listeners, and others are just waiting for their turn to speak or taking over completely. And it makes me wonder, who am I?
Yeah, and who am I? I guess it depends on the situation or conversation or who you interact with, though.
Hmm.
But honestly, in grief, that must be so exhausting. Sometimes you just need someone to listen. Just listen, not to fix it, not to try and make it about themselves, you know, bring in their side to things or their story. Just be there and listen to you.
Yeah, I think that is such a key thing. If someone in grief actually opens up to you, that's huge. I mean, the best thing you can do is just to hold some space for them. Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. But as you say, it really is a key thing. And let's be real, if you're someone who constantly interrupts or makes every story about yourself, if you even know, I don't know, maybe just try to hold back a little and be more aware of it when talking to someone who's grieving. Take a step back and really listen instead.
Just take a breath, hold back for a second, and keep the lips together, closed, and your ears open. You might even learn something.
Yeah, we could all use a little reminder of that sometimes.
Mm-hmm. must say, when you're the one grieving, you become so hyper aware of every single word people say or don't say. So I think this is very important to talk about for both of us.
Definitely. As I mentioned earlier, I really struggle with this and probably still do to some extent. The feeling of helplessness and just not knowing what to say. So hearing your thoughts and feelings on this would really help me. For instance, and I also think that I do this actually, when people are trying to relate or compare a situation, but totally miss the mark. Like when they say, I know how you feel, and then you go into your own experience. For instance, I know it was so hard when I lost my grandmother, and then they start comparing. And if you're the one in need of comfort, I don't know, it doesn't feel good, that comparison, does it?
I get what you mean. I don't think comparing is necessary at all, or to hijack the conversation. I mean, it might be for some, I guess, but when I think about it, no.
Maybe this is also a thing people just do without thinking. I know I am, just because I think it would be better in the situation. You know, I say I can relate, or this happened to me, because you just want to show that the other person is not alone in this.
Well, grief is so personal, though, and I think also so different for all of us. You can have two people experiencing the exact same trauma, and they, of course, will react differently. And I mean, about comparing, if the hardest loss you've ever faced was your 90-year-old grandma passing, or even, I don't know, your dog, then that's your experience, and that's valid. Of course it is. It's a subjective matter for sure. But losing someone you love deeply, maybe your other half, maybe so sudden and unexpected, a child, a spouse, someone close to you who's been a part of your life for so long, that's just a different kind of pain because it hits your whole identity and the life you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Am I comparing now? Probably. But these are just my thoughts.
No, I get what you're saying. Grief is totally personal, and now I'm thinking, what do you even say to someone who lost a child? Like, what words could possibly be enough? It has to be the most unimaginable loss. Okay, I guess I'm comparing now too, but still, it just seems beyond words.
Yeah, exactly. We all do it. We compare, we try to relate, we share our own experiences. It's human, but it's such a delicate balance. But as you say, losing a child, I've thought about that too. And honestly, I don't think there are any words that could ever be enough in a situation like that. It's just heartbreaking on a whole different level. I don't know what it's like, and I hope I never will. But I've seen it up close, and all I can say is it makes you quiet. You just want to hold space for them.
Right.
You want to acknowledge how awful the loss is without making it about comparing because, well, you just can't. And I also know I've probably said the wrong thing plenty of times without meaning to, because it's hard. There's no perfect way to navigate this. But I guess be humble.
I think it's also about how you say things. Instead of saying, I can't think of anything worse, maybe try something like, I can't even imagine. Because for the person going through it, it's already the worst. They don't need to hear it again. I remember you saying.
Exactly. You don't need to have the perfect words, just be genuine. It has to come from the heart, and honestly, your body language matters too. And I know it sounds like a lot to think about, but really, if you're sincere, it shows. And if you're close to the person grieving, just being there is often enough. Like I've said before, you will tolerate different things from different people and dare to be open. You can also just say, I don't know what to say. I mean, if you don't.
Yeah, maybe that is enough. No need to fix. Just be genuine and try to understand. And have the time and capacity to listen also. Another thing that comes to mind, because you told me this before, and I think this might be a common thing that people say. Just let me know if you need anything.
Ah, yes. A thing people say, and I've probably said it too. But now when I think about it, when you're in deep grief, the last thing you have the energy to do is to reach out and ask. So, I don't know. But I do know I didn't have the capacity to just, hey, can you bring me some food because I forgot to eat today? Or can you come over and just sit with me in silence for a bit? I would never. I know it's such a well-meaning thing to say, but it doesn't really help.
The intention is good, but let's be real. When you're in the middle of grief, you don't even know what you need sometimes, maybe. It's not just about having the energy to ask for it. You're just lost. So what helped you the most then? Was it when people just showed up without asking, without waiting for you to reach out?
Yeah, first of all, you are right. You don't know what you need. Not at all. And yes, of course, what helped me the most was the friends who just came over and sat with me and brought me groceries or dinner or tried to get me to eat. It wasn't easy. Or
Yeah.
simply just came over and walked my dog. They just were there and took action, and that meant everything. But we are all different in how we handle these things. Maybe some people find it easy to ask for help, to reach out, and then, of course, those well-meaning lines of just let me know if you need anything, they really can be so helpful. So I guess it all depends. But that also makes me wonder if a random friend or a neighbor asked me this, to help with anything, would they actually feel comfortable being asked? Could you cut the grass when you get a chance? Would they?
Right. It's interesting. Like if someone casually says, let me know if you need anything, would they truly follow through if you reached out? Or would they feel awkward or unsure about what to do? I think that they would, though. I mean, if you say it, I think that you actually would, especially
Yeah.
in that situation.
Mm.
But it's not always easy for people to accept help either. It's also much about balance, right? How we offer support and how we receive it.
Exactly. Yeah, it is, of course. And when we talk about it now, it shows maybe how tricky it is. Sometimes the best thing we can do is to show up and be present without waiting for a direct request. It's about giving what you can, even if the person doesn't ask for it directly. And as I said, you don't always need to fix things, just being there is enough.
So, the takeaway here, if someone is grieving, don't just offer help. Give help. Drop off food, take them for a walk, say, I'm picking up groceries, tell me what I can bring you. Be specific. Communicate.
Yes, that's a great one. Be specific. It's hard to know for sure. We are all so different, but for me at least, that would be much easier. And please also, something that comes to mind now, invite over for dinner also after some months, not just the first weeks. Those first weeks, we have enough dealing with the shock. I got so many invites those first weeks, and I didn't have the capacity. But I really longed for those invites after some months. So, yes, just a friendly reminder.
That makes sense,
Hmm.
And also be mindful of your words, maybe. I heard that when you're grieving, you hear everything differently. Is that your experience too?
Yeah, I guess you can say that words take a whole new meaning. It's hard to explain, but you become so hyper aware of what people say. And we talked about this before when someone asks, "Hi, how are you?" My first thought in the beginning was, "How the hell do you think I am?" Of course, of course, I answered politely most of the time, but I mean, it's such a common greeting, but when you're grieving, that question just hits differently. And when people ask, as we said before, they have to be ready for a real answer, not just a typical, "I'm fine."
Yeah.
And also, I remember people came up to me and said, "I've been thinking about you." And some days, to be honest, I thought to myself, oh, did you? Well, I haven't noticed. I know. I called a bitch, right?
No.
Anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. Honestly, I think that makes total sense. It's like when you're in that raw place, everything just lands differently. Even kind words can feel a bit off if they don't quite reach you. It's not that you're ungrateful, it's just your whole system is in survival mode. And yeah, classic, how are you? I mean, it's such a default thing to say, but it suddenly feels like the hardest question in the world, probably.
But it's like your brain is just not ready for those questions. And even though you're not ungrateful, it's like everything feels so, I don't know, off. And then the automatic response is to say, I'm fine, even if it's the last thing you feel. It's a defense mechanism, really.
Yeah, I get it.
And then also there's the whole we and us thing.
Right. That must hit so differently right after loss. You're reminded you're not a we anymore.
Yeah, that's also a thing. It's something I never really thought about before, but after losing my husband, I notice it all the time. And I probably used to say things like that too. We love this and we do that, without realizing it could be painful for someone else, someone who's alone. But at the same time, you can't overthink every word before speaking. It's just how people talk.
Of course. But I can imagine it must have been really hard in the moment.
It was something I thought about when it happened or after being social with couples still in their pairs. But I never said it out loud, I think. Or, yeah. Honestly, I don't know. It is what it is, and it's a normal thing to say. But I do remember some days the simplest things people said felt like tiny knives. Words I never would have thought twice about before suddenly had this weight to them, kind of.
But over time, do you think that you become more forgiving of what people say?
Definitely, of course. I see that even the awkward or painful comments came from a good place. People just don't always know what to say, and that's okay. They're trying, even if it doesn't always come out right. And the more I understood that back then, the easier it was to let go of the hurt. And maybe talking about this can help others so they are a little more aware. So if you're grieving, just remember people will say the wrong things, but most of them really mean well.
And if you're supporting someone in grief, just be mindful. Everyday words can land differently. You don't have to fix anything, just be there and listen. That's often what matters the most. And remember, the ones grieving are in shock and not their normal selves. Therefore, their reactions can come out differently. Rude or angry, or unexpected, if you can say that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't mean to.
We
And
don't.
No. And if you don't know what to say, just say that.
Yeah, good one.
One thing I remember so clearly from the beginning was how much it meant to you when people actually said his name.
Yes, that was so important to me. I don't think people realize how much it means. It's almost like they're afraid to say his name, like it would hurt me more. But honestly, not hearing his name hurt way more, I must say.
Yeah, I can totally see that. It's like people tiptoe around it because they don't want to make you sad. But the truth is, you were already sad.
Yeah, saying his name didn't remind me of my grief. I was already living with it every second of every day. But when someone said his name, it was like they acknowledged that he existed, that he mattered, that he wasn't just gone and forgotten.
Of course. But do you think people avoided it because they didn't know if it was okay?
I think so, and I totally get it. Like we mentioned so many times, grief makes people uncomfortable. They don't want to say the wrong things, so they just say nothing, maybe, or they talk around him instead of about him. But for me, hearing his name in a conversation, hearing a memory someone had of him, that brought me comfort. It reminded me that he was still part of the world in a way, still present in people's minds.
Yeah, he is. And he's never forgotten and always a part of us all. And I guess it's the same with all grief. We don't want to pretend like the person never existed.
Yeah, and it's not like saying his name made me suddenly break down in tears. Most of the time, it actually made me smile. Even if it hurt a little, it was a good kind of hurt.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it.
Hmm. You know, one of my sons said something so profound once. He told me a person dies twice. Once when they take their last breath, and again when people stop mentioning their name.
Wow.
Yeah, and that hit me so hard. It made me even more determined to say his name, to keep his memory alive, not just for me, but for my boys and for everyone who loved him.
That is such a powerful thought. And it's true. As long as we talk about him, share stories, say his name, he's still here in a way.
Exactly. He was my beloved husband, and I will always love him because he's still a part of my story, and I will always love hearing his name and hear shared stories about him. And I must say, if someone wonders, I don't mention his name here. Honestly, I don't know why, really. It just feels too personal, I guess. So for now, this is how it is.
Yeah, we talked about that, and I fully understand. So, what would you say to someone who isn't sure if they should bring a loved one's name up after they passed?
I'd say it. If you're thinking about them, share it. Tell a story and say their name. It won't make the grief worse. It might actually help. And if the person grieving isn't ready for it, they will let you know. But in my experience, it's always better to acknowledge than avoid. Or you can always ask, like, are you okay with me sharing the story of your husband or wife or whatever? I mean, it's not that hard.
That is a good takeaway. Grief doesn't erase a person's existence, and saying their name keeps them with us in a way.
Yeah, we carry them forward, not just in our hearts, but in our words also. Just a reminder, these things we talk about today is also especially important for healthcare professionals. When someone is facing a major illness or loss, their whole world is crashing down. A doctor or a nurse's tone, their facial expressions, the way they hold themselves, it all matters so much. It's the difference between feeling like just another patient and feeling truly seen. And as a next of kin, this is crucial. We need to be acknowledged too and included and seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine how much of a difference that makes in those moments when everything feels like it's falling apart. Even the smallest gesture from a healthcare worker, like a warm tone or just taking a moment to really look you in the eye, can make you feel human again, like you matter too. It's not just about the patient, it's about everyone who's walking that path with them.
Yeah. But it's not just in medical settings, it's everywhere. When someone is grieving, they pick up every little hesitation, as I said before, even every shift in energy. And that's why small gestures like a warm hand on the shoulder, a meaningful hug, or even just sitting in comfortable silence can be so powerful. If that suits the situation, I must say. But also the lack of touching, I mean, read the room, we are also different. And for me, I can become this stiffy. Can you say that? Is that a word?
Stiff, maybe.
Yeah. If people stroke my arm or rub my shoulder, I have had some episodes at our local hospital because I didn't totally trust them, or maybe it was more just because I didn't know them so well, I don't know. And I remember this nurse at the intensive care after my boyfriend was admitted once last year, and she looked at me with puppy eyes and stroked my arm and, gave me this "for you" talks. And then she added so much fear in me by doing that, because he had just been rushed off to emergency operation and I were in shock, terrified. So when she did that, I just froze and stepped away from her and gave her this look. But honestly, poor her, because I felt so bad for her because she was really trying her best. But as I said, read the room. That was not for me, and I believe my body language showed that clearly, because she made it so much worse. She took away my hope, kind of.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I totally get that, I guess. Sounds intense. I'm sure it was in the moment. But it's also kind of shocking how something that's meant to comfort you can have the opposite effect when it's not in tune with what you actually need. Especially in the moment like that when you're already scared out of your mind. I mean, it just shows how sensitive everything becomes when you're in a crisis. You feel everything.
Yeah. And this is hard. This is hard for a healthcare professional, because you try your best, of course you do. But just don't take away my hope, ever, please.
Yeah, I guess it's important to always have that hope when you're in those situations.
It would actually be better if she just said, this will be fine.
Yeah.
This will
Yeah.
work out. Just try to relax, have a coffee, sit down, that
Yeah,
kind
even
of
if
thing.
it's not, I guess it's better to hear those words in that moment. Even if,
Definitely.
the end result is not, that's what you need to hear.
Even if you don't know, at least that would be much more helpful.
That's such an important thing to recognize. That sometimes when people don't know what to say and do, they overcompensate by saying whatever comes to their minds before thinking, trying to comfort you in the situation. But grief doesn't need noise, I guess. It needs space. It needs comfort without that pressure of certain words.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's the key takeaway from this conversation. When supporting someone who is grieving, don't focus so much on what to say. Focus on how you show up and your energy and your body language, because your willingness to just be there matter more than the words you choose.
Beautifully said, sister.
Yeah.
Sometimes love and support don't need words at all. And if you don't know what to say, just be there. That's enough.
Yes. And to anyone grieving, be kind to yourself always. And if people say something dumb, just know they are trying, even if it's clumsy. Because grief is brutal, but we still can have control over how we move forward. We can't choose what happens to us, but we can kind of choose how we react. It needs practice, though.
So true. So let me end with this one. In the face of grief, it's not clever words that comfort. It's the ones who stay. The quiet presence, the gentle eye contact, the awkward coffee drop-off at your door. That's love, and honestly, that's more than enough.
Nina had a dream, all black and white. We were talking in English, yeah, that ain't right. Two Norwegian sisters miles apart, but that dream lit a fire, put a mic to the heart. Katrine's in the States, Nina's back home. Two voices, one mission through the microphone. Grief in life, the highs and the lows. We hit record, where the file go? Oh, we fumble, we stumble, but baby we shine. Lost the intro, never mind. Wi-Fi shaky, cables crossed, but our hearts stay strong, no moment lost. From a dream to the mic, now the world can hear. Two sisters telling truths with a laugh and a tear. We live, we learn, we sip, we sigh. Talking love, talking lost, let the echoes fly. Grief walks in, pulls up a chair, says I'll stay a while, yeah, life ain't fair. But we mix it with laughter, a toast in hand, finding light where the dark still stands. Ba-da-da-boo-doo, is this thing on? Mic's on mute, oh well, move along. Ba-ba-dee, ba-ba-da, take two. Oops, too late, let's laugh it through. From a dream to the mic, now the world can hear. Two sisters telling truths with a laugh and a tear. We live, we learn, we sip, we sigh. Talking love, talking lost, let the echoes fly. So plug in, lean in, let's take our time. No script, no filters, just rhythm and rhyme. We're here, we're now, we're in our prime. Two sisters, one dream, on the mic.